Hello, chess fans. Welcome to day 2 of the 2019 St. Louis Norm Congress. We are far away in progress with round number 2 of this round-robin event. My name is Ben Simon, and I'm joined by Grandmaster in Residence, Aleksandr Lenderman. Alex, today is going to be a fun day. We're going to see this round come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm already seeing some very interesting games in some very interesting positions, so it can go either way today.
Before we get to that, let's take a look at our standings after one round has been played in our GM Norm section. Now, we had all decisive games, with all 3 Grandmasters in this division being victorious, including Andrew Hong and Joel Bonala, who actually are playing each other today. Those are 2 hopefuls here in this Norm event. Both players have not achieved the Grandmaster Norm as of yet. Hey, at the end of this thing, maybe they'll get there first. Let's take a look at our standings in our International Master Norm section. We had a couple of draws here. Shankar, Keaton Kira at the top. I want to issue a correction from yesterday. Justin Wang is actually an International Master in the first field. I had to mention that. Sorry about that. But anything is up for grabs here in the IM Norm field. But if you're just joining us for the first time and you didn't see our pre-show yesterday, you might be asking yourself, what exactly is a norm? Well, a norm is one of 3 notches that you have to earn, one of 3 performances that you need to score in tournaments where there are at least 3 other players that already have that title. You have to prove yourself worthy. In this event, 6.5 points is the magic number to get a norm with just a few exceptions. But we have many different federations represented in the fields, 6 in the Grandmaster Norm event, 5 in the IM Norm field as well. Our tournament format, we have 2 10-player round robins. The time control is 90 minutes with a 30-second increment, and we are getting down to the nitty-gritty here at the end of round number 2. Our tournament schedule is as follows. We're going to be playing 2 rounds most days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then we have the 2 final rounds being played on Monday and Tuesday, just to give the players enough time to warm up and get into the home stretch. And playoffs will be played in the event of a tie for first. We encourage you to follow along on YouTube in our chat and hashtag NormCongress on Twitter. To start, Yavuz says, "Oh, I'm so excited about this." Thanks for watching, Yavuz. Let's get into our pairings for our GM Norm section and see what exactly is relevant here. Casa Corley versus Tatev Abrahamian, JJ Ali Morandi versus Justin Wang, Brandon Jacobson versus Brian Escalante, Danish Borosh versus Jack Stembuliak. I have to mention, before we get to our last one, that 3 of these games have already ended. We know that Brandon Jacobson has defeated Brian Escalante, as well Borosh Stembuliak and Ali Morandi Wang have come to a draw. But our key matchup today for our GM Norm section, Andrew Hong versus Joel Bonala, and it's got to be the key matchup because these 2 won last night, and they were the only IMs to do so. I am Joel Bonala, and they are fighting for their first norms in this event. Alex, let's take a glance at this game so far in progress and see where we are.
Yeah, though this has been a very sharp game, very much up and down. So this is French defense, classical French, which turned into McKitchen French, which leads to a very wild position. I remember when I was a young kid and the master played it against me. I was 1800. I had no idea what it was, and then I learned and I realized it's a very sharp line which leads to attacking positions. And I remember I used to play this line as white as a kid, where you weaken, your structure on the queen side, but in return, you're playing this move Queen G4, where you're putting pressure on the G6, G7 pawn. And now black has 2 moves as far as I know, G6, which is also a main line after bishop D3, and the move that was played in the game, King F8, which I think leads to more sharp position. And I haven't really kept up with the modern day theory on this, But all I know is it leads to very sharp positions where white tries to get an attack and black tries to either get a queenside attack or maybe try to play an endgame where he has a slightly better pawn structure. So it's bishop d3, knight takes d2, king takes d2, c5. And I would probably be more inclined to try h4, rook h3, going for attacks, but this was very sharp. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly who this favors, but it looks like black should already be doing quite okay because he has counterplay here on e5, c5.
Tripled pawns, you don't see that too often.
Yeah, well, actually, in this line, it's happened quite a few times for me, especially when they castle long in the g6 lines. But okay, that's a different story. So knight f3, queen c7. He doesn't rush taking the pawn. He can take the pawns on e5 or c5 anytime. Queen f4, knight takes c5, h4, and now white starts his attack with rook h3, rook g3, bishop d7, rook h3, rook c8. So black is already threatening some things like knight takes d3 and queen takes c3, winning the rooks, so white has to act accordingly, and he does so with the move knight d4, with the idea of meeting this with rook takes d3, and the rook conveniently is not only looking at attacking, but also defending the key weakness. So black played bishop e8. Maybe it was also deserving attention to get the king out of the way right away with king g8. But bishop e8 was played, rook g3. And now black played f5. Again, I'm not sure if that was strictly necessary. There was maybe other moves as well, like knight takes d3, with the idea of gaining a tempo with rook takes d3. Or if white goes very ambitious with knight takes e6, it actually backfires because of king e7. And suddenly, no matter what you do, you're going to lose a piece in this position. For example, here, here. Or if rook takes d3, f takes e6. So black, so that was possible, but he played f5.
After f5, isn't he losing a pawn if just e takes f6?
E takes f6, queen takes f4 was this point.
Oh, of course.
So couldn't quite do that, but rook e1, king g8, and still I think black is having a good position, rook e3. And queen f7. I'm not sure about this move. Maybe it was better to go bishop h5 and not have the queen block that bishop. So maybe that was a little bit better. But queen f7 was played, king e1, bishop d7, rook h3. And now bishop e2, maybe preparing for g4 sometimes. And now maybe it was better to try this, but he played knight f3, bishop e8, king f1, and here we are in this position where it's black's move, or is it actually this position, or maybe something has changed since. So let's
we can update that board.
this one?
Yeah,
Or
just click on it.
this one,
on
yeah?
the left, yeah.
This one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be here. Wait,
No,
it's a
no.
little different. Sorry.
Hong Banawa, right there. It's highlighted right there. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
There we go.
So there were some more moves made. Queen e7, g4, takes, queen f7, and queen g2. And still, it's a very unclear game. It's anyone's game. White has potential attacks, but so does black. Has pressure on the f-file. You know, it's just one of these positions that's very hard to evaluate. Both sides has its pluses, and it's one of these positions where one mistake can be very costly.
Well, this is
So,
still
this
going
is
to be
a-
the game to watch here.
This is going to be the game that goes really down to the wire, I feel. And also notice how white has 4 minutes and black has 15 minutes. So time will definitely probably be a factor here where, you know, very easily, you know, time pressure mistake can really cost you the game.
No doubt, no doubt. We'll get back to this game in just a bit, but let's hop over to our IM Norm division. Our Group B, Keaton Kira versus Aaron Jacobson, Rochelle Wu versus Eric Rosen, Luis Torres versus Aaron Grabinski, Ezra Chambers versus Peter Giannatos. We have one game that has finished, Luis Torres versus Aaron Grabinski. That was a win for Torres. But our key matchup in this division has to be FIDE Master Gori Shankar taking on Kenta Chiku Rate. We called him Olivier yesterday, and he said, I kind of want to go by Kenta. So we'll call him Kenta. Let's glance at this game and see where we are.
Where is it?
We'll scroll down here to Group
Okay.
B, and it's in that division.
So let's find that game. Okay, so here we are. Yeah, so this, just the way it looks very, very interesting. So let's see how it played out. So this was a Dutch defense, already a very ambitious double-edged opening. As we might know, as we might remember, Hikaru Nakamura won a decisive game at the recent US Championship with the Dutch against Jeffrey Xiong, and that was a beautiful game. If you're a fan of the Dutch defense, I highly recommend you take a look at that game. And here, White went for a slightly not offbeat setup. It's actually a very popular setup as well, but kind of went a little bit under the radar because more common these days is setups with knight f3, castles, and then let's say c4, b3, and so on. But in this game, he played a more sharp system with knight h3, knight f4, and h4, going for an attack. And in this line, black has to, be very precise. As far as I remember, the main line is supposed to be knight c6, trying to play for some e5. Not castling too quickly here, because as we could see here, he castled very quickly into the attack, and maybe that was a little bit dangerous. Queen e8, h5, g5, and now White came up with a very good move, h6, because if he moves the knight back, black would play h6, and suddenly black would stabilize the whole situation. But he included the very nice intermezzo h6, where black has to go back, because if he was going to take that, then after takes, black's king set would be completely in ruins, and White has too many threats to handle. So he went back, but now the g5 pawn becomes significantly weak. And it was possibly better to go knight d3. That way, after g4, you can just develop. Instead, he played knight h3, Gayuri Shankar, and at least that gave black a tempo to try to regroup himself. But still, of course, that pawn on h6 is a very unpleasant thing for black to deal with. It's like a lot of clouds gathering around this king, and at any moment, black's position here could collapse. For now, his position is sort of together, but it's certainly White won the opening battle here. And now White went for c4, knight c3, a very logical plan, c6, and knight d3. It was also maybe possible to go right away for e4, but White played this. This is not a mistake. Takes, e4, queen e6, queen d2, eyeing on the g5 square, nearing the king, rook d8, knight c5. Yeah, and this move, I'm not sure if that was the best move, because here it just gets attacked and maybe loses a tempo. So maybe it was better to start with a move like b3, just getting that last piece in the game somehow. But he went knight c5, queen e7, queen g5, king f7, and now he ended up going back to b3, but I kind of doubt that that was the best plan, because now I feel like the knight on b3 is also a little bit misplaced. Knight a6, black completes his development. It was also possible to try this, attacking this, and trying developing this way. But it's a very complicated position, so it's very hard to criticize the players here. Castles, knight b4, ef, rook g8, queen h4, knight c2, rook b1, knight d4. So now we see that black regrouped the knight to a good square where it maybe thinks about taking on f5. White played rook e1, eyeing on this pawn, trying to get the rook in the game. Knight takes b3. So if knight takes f5, I'm wondering if White really wanted to go queen h1 with, some pressure here. But I still feel like that should have been played. And after rook g6, black is probably close to fine. But he took on b3, trading off a good knight for this knight on b3, which is a little bit restricted. And now he took on f5. And let's see if this was... so there were a couple of more moves. Rook a1, queen e6, bishop e3, and I think in this position, white is still slightly better. I mean, black's king is still in the long run weaker than white's. White has relatively active pieces. And, right now also the a7 pawn is hanging. And the 4 pawn could be a factor for white. It's potentially an outpost. And even though black is still kind of defending, but it's a tough position for black to play. And also notice how he's now only living off of the increment. So this will be a struggle for black going forward. But of course, it's a complicated position. Anything can still happen.
All right, very nice. Thank you very much. We do have breaking news in Group B. 2 players who were fighting for their first IM norms have ended the game, and it was the head of the Charlotte Chess Center, FIDE Master Peter Giannatos, who was victorious over Ezra Chambers, bringing both players to an equal score. Before we take a look at that game, and hopefully we get to talk to Peter down here in just a few moments, let's take a look at the prize fund. We have people in the chat wondering, what is the prize for this event? Well, ultimately, for most of them, it's a norm. But for everyone, we have some money. $9,000 total on the line, with $2,000 going to the champion of our top group. And in our second group, we have a $6,000 prize fund. The winner will walk away with $1,200, and all the players are guaranteed to not lose money by coming here to St. Louis. This is a great event. The hospitality is always great here in St. Louis, especially for an event like the Norm Congress. This is where we make the superstars of the game tomorrow. Now, let's go around the horn, Alex, and take a look at this game that just ended between Ezra and Peter.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now, and it looks like black played a little bit of an offbeat opening. As we saw in the Bonava game, their knight f6 was played, and that's sort of a main line. One of the main lines besides the Winover.
And Alex, Peter is here right now, so I'm going to take leave, and he'll be here in just a moment.
Sounds good. So, as we could see in this game, Peter played the move knight c6. It's a slightly offbeat line, but also very much playable. And here there's several ways white can play. I think a popular way to play, is bishop d3, with the idea of just protecting everything, where you cannot take because of takes, and bishop b5. In that case, maybe black can go knight b4, and then castles, and you can get a game like this. But we have the move bishop g5 played, and then after this, it looks like black already got a comfortable game because black has counterplay with c5 and so on. And here we have Peter in the studio with us to talk about the game.
Yeah.
So Peter, how do you feel about the game?
Well, I lost a pretty passive position yesterday, where basically I was white, but I was playing black, and so I wanted to play a little bit offbeat opening today to see if I could catch my opponent a little bit unaware, and to try to win to try to get back to 50%. So so I played this knight c6 on move 3 in the French. And I wasn't quite sure how it all went. On move 12 b6. I mean, I guess I could trade on b3, but I thought after b6 there's just more complicated play.
More double-edged, yes,
Yeah.
because after knight takes b3, he can do this.
Yeah, I thought takes, queen b4, something like
Queen
that.
b4, queen g4, and black is certainly comfortable, but it could be a bit drawish.
Yeah.
So certainly, it's a very logical decision, b6, to have a more unbalanced structure, to keep more winning chances on the board, which I think...
I sort of thought if he pretty much has to take, because the knight on b3 doesn't make a lot of sense.
What if he takes d takes c5, by the way?
I thought he might do that. I guess I have to take knight takes b3. And
knight takes b3, and then, he can probably take with either pawn. Let's say he takes
and then
here.
Let's say queen takes is possible. Yeah, I actually looked at this. Yeah,
g4, queen d4.
Yeah.
Still looks equalish, but it's certainly fighting. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he would definitely, I sort of thought it might go b6, knight takes a5. And he played c4 because, otherwise I was going to go c4 and bishop a4.
c4, bishop a4, queen a3, and
Exactly.
start pressuring on the weaknesses.
Yeah, and I thought if I push his bishop back off of that diagonal, it's all black there.
Yes.
You know what I
yes.
mean? So
So c4 is very logical.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here I was, I felt a little bit nervous because I hadn't castled yet, and I wanted to go pawn c4. Takes on c4, which is what I did, and then here bishop c6 is after takes bishop c6
Instead of
castle. But then I thought d5, and originally I thought rook d8, but then I started thinking he could probably take the bishop, sack the queen, and I have nothing to attack, and that pawn's alive.
Yeah, you're
That's what
absolutely
I
right.
thought.
This is actually completely lost for you because he's coming rook d7, and you know also the bishop potentially controls the queening square.
Yeah.
So this is very dangerous, and in fact the engine says you're completely losing here.
Well, I'm glad I had good judgment there.
Yeah,
So
that was a very good judgment.
So I castled, and I almost thought 100% he was going to go d5 here. I don't know why he did. I mean, I because my pawn on c5 looks like a miss there. I thought I would take and then go rook d8. Bishop takes rook d8.
Yes, and you're completely fine here,
Yeah.
but of course this would be much harder to win. And
I was already sort of resigning myself to a draw. Like, okay, he'll move like queen e2 or something. I'll go bishop e6, and that'll be the end of that.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
any position is potentially winnable, but of course, realistically speaking, the most likely result is a draw here.
Yeah.
But
So I was-
but sometimes that happens, even in my experiences playing in the US Championship, sometimes it happens you're resigned to a draw, to a certain result, the game's kind of going boring, and suddenly you get a little chance here, and it's important when you do get a chance to take maximum advantage of that chance.
Yeah,
So-
I was very surprised he played rook b1 and then allowing me to go bishop c6. I was very happy here.
Because it's a move you want to play anyway. He was
Yeah.
wanting to go for the cheap threat rook b7, but of course you want to go bishop c6 anyway, so it wasn't logical.
Yeah, so and here just little by little he was just I think here when he after bishop b5, I think he just missed that after bishop d5 c4 I have bishop e4. I think he missed that in his brain.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Even this would have been playable probably.
It is.
Rook b2 and then rook e1. But of course, rook,
Yeah, I thought rook d8,
rook
yeah.
d8, rook d2.
Yeah,
and it's not so bad.
Exactly. But I think he was sort of alarmed that I think that's what he intended to play originally, and then he played rook b2, which I think is just
Yeah, rook b2 is definitely a mistake.
And now so after rook b8, I think here I couldn't decide. He played.
By the way, one
yes.
quick moment. Did you consider starting with queen b7 here?
I didn't. No. I'm attacking. Yeah. Okay. I'm attacking g2 and I'm threatening a6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how good that is. Maybe
Yeah.
because he still has options like queen a1, bishop takes g2, rook e1. But of course, it's a move that it's good to look at because it's similar to rook b8, and it's a move that could actually win the game potentially.
Yeah.
if things.
I completely missed it. I almost thought after rook b8, I just didn't know what he was going to do. I was like, what a weird. And then he played queen d2, and I was like, okay. And then here, I don't know if I did the right thing because of course I can win a pawn here, but I was really intrigued by that his bishop was so out of the game. So I played c4, but I don't know how good that is.
It's very logical.
I was playing against the bishop on b5, and I didn't want him to go c4 because the whole point is if I go a6, he goes c4, and I can win a pawn there. But I didn't think that was the best I could do. It's probably good for black, but I really thought I could make more of the position.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, this was a very interesting decision. Giving up material maybe, but also getting a lot of
I thought queen g5, and then I thought I was in the driver's seat. Because once I take on d4, like if he goes g3...
G3, I think there's a6 takes and queen g4.
Yeah, I thought of going queen g4 first and then just taking on d4 because my pawn is
Queen
protected.
g4 first, then maybe queen c3.
Oh,
so
and then he just comes back and guards.
maybe
okay.
it's good to go a6. But in any event, it's pretty clear that it's very good for you, and then
Yeah.
you can figure out what the best option.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned about that, and
Yeah.
then so I'm glad the computer says c4 is okay because it took me a while to
And
not
actually,
go for the pawn.
it actually at first doesn't like it, but then once you play it, it likes it much more. So that even actually says how good the idea is, because it's like one of these hidden ideas that's underestimated at first.
Right.
So it's a very good idea.
Thank you.
Rook b1, and now maybe queen a3 finishes off even easier.
Yeah,
but
so I thought c3 here. and
bishop
then-
e4.
Oh, I just completely missed that after c3 I have bishop e4 hitting the rook. Yeah, okay.
But of course, when you already have such a good option like
Yeah.
rook b6, it's hard to force yourself. Plus, in this time control, without a second time control, you don't really want to get into time
and
pressure.
here I'm just in awe that he didn't play bishop a4.
Yeah, he should try it. I mean, good or bad, it looks losing, but at least it still keeps him in a game.
Yeah. I mean,
Somehow.
that I thought was the only way for. Yeah, I thought something, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy, but I'm not winning. Like, it's not clear exactly how I'm going to win yet.
Yeah, exactly. But he probably blundered
This,
something.
I think, is just over. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's totally. Yeah.
So I thought here, so h6, queen h4. I mean, he's trying to trick me. I even thought of going a6 and just bishop takes, rook takes b2, taking all the material, and then picking up the bishop, probably with rook on 8. Yeah, and I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yes.
But I just played king h7, threatening a6, so that there's no trick. Because basically he's going for bishop a6 and queen d8 check. So
and if he goes queen e1, you go a6 anyway, right?
yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, so I think you're winning in many different ways. Yeah, you have to just choose the simplest one. And,
Yeah. So and then this.
Yeah, the rest is of course.
I imagine this.
relatively
I didn't miss anything here.
No,
of importance.
No, I think the rest is relatively simple. Yeah, queen g5, g6, h3.
And
Yeah, no, it was a very good game. So
Thank you.
Good job. Very nice recovery off of the previous game. I think the opening choice worked out very well. It's clear that you understood the position quite well and you saw a lot of good things. So it looks like you're getting back into form, and I wish you best of luck in the next few rounds.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So let's now go back to the game between Gayur Shankar and Oliver Chikurate, Kenta, and see what happened here while we were speaking with Peter. So last time we were at this position and we were saying how white was a bit better. So since then, black decided to sacrifice this pawn. Maybe it was better to still play a6, defending. But he decided to give up the pawn, and white happily took it. Black went for counterplay with e4. White played the queen h1 idea, as we discussed before, putting pressure on e4. Maybe it was better, more practical, to just go bishop d4 and neutralize this diagonal and getting the bishop off of a7. But he went queen h1, rook here, bishop d4, takes, and queen d6. But there was a very interesting option. Maybe since he already sacrificed one pawn, maybe it deserved attention to sacrifice another one and try some knight h5 and some crazy counterplay. But he played queen d6, and now we're at this position. And the rook d1 was just played live, and again, we can still see that white is very much in the driver's seat. But of course, with this time control and with the time station, still anything can absolutely happen.
Well, Alex, I got to say, while we were talking to Peter, big developments in the tournament. First of all, it's a great day for the Jacobson brothers because Aaron has just won his game against Keaton Kira in Group B, the IM division. We can glance at that in a moment, but I think Hong versus Banawa is having some interesting developments.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that.
Yeah, let's go there first, and maybe we'll get Aaron in here for an interview.
Yeah, so let's see, Hong against Bonava. Yes, so it definitely had a lot of interesting moments, and let's see what happened. So we were off around here. So, ever since it looks like, even here there was, so what happened here? Queen f5. Maybe that wasn't the best move actually, because that just simply allowed a tempo on that queen, because now this is a threat. And then next move coming is knight d4. So this move, queen f5, definitely looks like a mistake. Losing 2 tempes. And now white is already very much in control. Maybe bishop d3 was also deserving attention, trying to trade off knight for bishop. And leaving himself with a very good knight against the bad bishop on e8. But he played bishop g4, queen e7, rook f3, bishop d7, queen h3. Yeah, maybe it was good to trade off this rook, because one thing that I teach all my students is that when opponent has a bad piece, or especially a couple of long-term bad pieces, it's often good idea to trade off the neutral pieces, and that way it's going to be much harder for opponent to play with. They're kind of stuck with the bad pieces. It's like a general principle. But now after this, rook h8, king e1, it's not as clear because the king is now escaping, and suddenly this rook, which was just bad, he was able to activate it, and now again black is fine. Rook g3, rook f7, rook g2, rook f8, and now suddenly it's black who's doing very well. Bishop e2, rook f4. Maybe king h8 was good here, just getting out of all the checks, and for example, this would, be much less of a factor later on. Rook f4, queen h2, and here maybe it made sense to do this and threaten this. He went there, king h8, rook here, rook 4 f7, and this looks like it was actually a tactical blunder, because white actually had a chance to do rook takes g7, and after rook takes g7 you would take, followed by taking on f4, and if rook takes f2, then you can go rook g8, king h7, and maybe even a move like knight b3, and black lost the key pawn. So most likely he just overlooked rook takes f7, whereas if he just goes here, threatening knight e4 and maybe queen a3, black looks like he's completely still in control. So this was probably a tactical oversight, but white, he had, they're both playing close to an increment. White missed this opportunity, and black then played the move queen h4, and now it's black who probably is, again, a bit better.
Reminder, these players have 30-second increments, so every move 30 seconds is added on, but still it's not very comfortable to play with just 1 minute left on your clock, as we see both the players there by the window. But
so it looks like queen g1 was played, getting out of the queen trade, and also potentially threatening on g7. Not right away because of the pin, but maybe after the king moves somewhere.
All right. Let's take a look at the other game that's still going on in our Grandmaster division, Corley versus Tatev Abrahamian.
Yeah, and in this position, looks like there are a lot of things have happened since we last looked. Last time we looked somewhere around this moment, where basically white had a slight but stable edge, had control over the c6 square, and was just pressing. But then a few developments came, and now white is the one. They repeated the moves a couple of times, probably to get some time on the clock, and white is still pressing. He decided to secure the knight on c6 here, and now he decided to reposition the knight to d5 and maybe go with the rook to c6, so repositioning of the pieces. And eventually black ended up winning the b5 pawn, but at a very high cost. White was able to win the f6 pawn, and now the king is becoming a factor, as well as a lot of the kingside pawns. So white gave up one advantage for another. But here it looks like rook e6 was maybe a bit more accurate, but he played there. And now e4 was played. Here black missed a very good chance to get very good counterplay. King e7, rook takes here, and b5. And suddenly white's pieces are losing a bit of coordination, and black's pawn is actually going very fast, with the rook behind the pawn. But black, in this position, played e4. And here now it was white's turn to miss a very nice opportunity. He could have gone rook d8 check, king e7, rook g8. And if black ignores the threat, white is threatening takes, and here. And the rule is, usually when three pieces attack the king, an open king, it usually leads to very bad things. And actually black cannot defend the position here. But white played another tempting move, knight f4. But this, let go of some part of the advantage. So now white found a cute tactic, winning the pawn on e4, with the idea of having this fork. And now we have a position where white is up a pawn. And now notice how white decided to offer a knight trade, hoping for rook endgame, and this certainly would have given maybe black some drawing chances. But black decided to go knight g4, and after rook d2, we have now this position. Now there are a couple of moves made since. Knight b3, knight c6, rook f4, king e5, knight c5, rook a7, knight d3, king e6, and what can we say about this position? White is up a pawn, but it's a more dynamic kind of up a pawn endgame, where black has counterplay always with the b pawn, but white has also 4-on-2 on the king side, so white has a good chance of making, at some point, connected passers on the king side. So this is going to be down to the wire. This could end up being erased, and this can be still anyone's game. Of course, white is favored right now, but I wouldn't even be surprised if somehow black swindles the win.
Corley, representing Denmark, comes to us from New York City. He has one Grandmaster norm, so he's playing for his second. Tatev has just about 1 million IM norms. She's just trying to cross the 2,400 threshold, and she could earn a GM norm here as well, up against the odds. So let's jump over to the IM section. Rochelle Wu versus Eric Rosen. Eric, we know him very well around here, former commentator here at this desk as well. And a very notable streamer. And Rochelle Wu looks to be in the driver's seat. Am I right to say that?
Yes, Rochelle Wu is definitely better. She's up a pawn. Black doesn't have very much counterplay compensation. The knight on d2 controls all the key squares, most notably the b1 square. And also black's king is a bit weak, so it's safe to say that white definitely has a big advantage. But of course, again, there's a time situation where Rochelle only has, she's playing on the increment, and of course Eric also doesn't have tons of time. So last time I saw this game, it was somewhere around here. It was a very complicated game, so we won't be able to go over all the critical moments right now. But after a lot of dust has settled, white here found a very nice tactic. Took on f4, took on c5, with the idea being after this there's rook e7, and no good defense from the mate threat. So Rochelle was very sharp with her tactics here. So black played bishop e8, which is a good defensive move, knight e4, bishop g6, b3. Of course here black can recover the pawn, and probably the endgame will be kind of equalish, but black at this point probably was hoping for more. b3, rook c d8, king b2, and now Eric decided to go for f3, which again, if he wants to play an equal game, he can take here, but Eric probably wants to play a bit more ambitiously, but this kind of backfires, because now if white just goes rook d2, the d6 pawn is covered, and looks like this f3 thing is not going anywhere. So queen f3, rook d6, rook e2, rook e6, knight d2, and now white's sort of consolidating her position. And now this is where we are, where white is kind of in control, and there have been a couple of more moves made, but they don't impact the game that much. And in fact, now white is up 2 pawns, and if white plays a move like a5, white will be in the driver's seat here.
Well, nicely done so far by Rochelle, who's outrated by about 150 FIDE classical points by Rosen. Rochelle doesn't have any IM norms, but she does have one WGM norm, and with 6 points in this field, she'll get both an IM and a WGM notch. So we'll check back on this in a second. But how about our key matchup in Group B, Gari Shankar versus Kenta Chikurate?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of development recently. So last time we left off somewhere around here, and then ever since, there were a couple of more moves. So white played king h2, queen e6, queen e1, consolidating, improving the queen to maybe e3 square, rook e8, queen e3, queen f5, king g1. So this was a good maneuver. Now the king, is very safe, and also protects f2. So black's getting short on counterplay, and now white is the one taking control over that open a file, and suddenly it's white the one with the extra pawn and the compensation. So knight a4, rook e7, knight b6, queen c7, rook a8, and now white is basically completely in control, completely winning. And Gayuri is a player who oftentimes gets into time pressure, so actually 2 minutes is quite a lot of time for him with the increments, so I think he has a very good chance of converting this position. with an extra pawn and very good position.
A couple of moves just played really quick there on the board.
Yes, so rook a8, so black traded rooks, there was really nothing else. And now, it's probably a good idea to play c5, b4, and securing this knight on b6, and maybe freeing the bishop on d4 and the queen on e3 for more useful roles. And also c5 can be potentially can potentially be a prelude to knight c4, knight d6 as well.
26-year-old Gauri Shankar has all of his norms, actually. He's just trying to get his rating to 2,400, that threshold where he can be awarded as an IM elect. He's at 2,375. We'll see where he lands after this tournament is over. As far as Kenta, he has 2 IM norms. He's going for his 3rd in this event. Okay. Let's check back in with Hong Bonala, key matchup in Group A.
Yes, so let's go back there. Hong Bonala. Oh, a lot of things have changed. Oh, now black looks like he's very much in control. I see a pawn on c3. I mean, rook on f3. Queen's about to come to a3. So let's see what happened. When we left off, black was doing well, but it looks like his position has improved some more because now black is looking at the weakness on c3, and white's pieces are pushed back. Bishop d3, b4, very nice idea, opening up the game. And now white played knight e2, which didn't seem like was a very good move. It was probably better to go here, and after this, just to hide the king somehow. But, again, in a position like this, it's very hard to play, the best moves. So he played knight e2, driving the knight away from a good square, and now black took this pawn, which is also a very important pawn. And now white is kind of scuffling with some rook g4, and it looks like, white's fighting on his last legs in this game.
Is there anything even to fight for white here? Looks like he's purely on the defensive.
Well, I mean, it's, let's see, what's the material? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So white's down 2 pawns, but of course it's still a position where you can blunder, right? It's still, there's still pieces on the board, and black still has to prove that he finds the winning plan. So it's certainly a lost position for white, but not hopeless in a practical game, right? Obviously, black is a very big favorite to win this at this point, but, I mean, when you're in time pressure, anything can still happen. So, and there was still some moves made, knight c5 and bishop g6. So, as far as I know, when you're defending positions like that, the main thing I try to, do when I'm trying to defend a position like that is to at least not lose right away. Try to, find a move before you resign, as long as you can. And then you never know. I mean, maybe your opponent won't play the best winning plan, and you can little by little get back in the game. That's usually my approach when I try to defend. At least try not to make it easy for them. Try to hold on as long as you can. But so far, Bonala is doing just fine. He activated his bishop. Now his bishop, which earlier was a bad piece, now it's really impacting the game. He wants to trade it off for the knight. And there's really nothing white can do, because if he moves the knight to d4, then there's rook f1. So at this point, yeah, it looks not good for white. But of course, anything can always still happen.
Alex, let's jump over to Group B. It looks like Eric Rosen might be about to resign against Rochelle Wu.
So Rochelle just played a very interesting move, g5, with the idea of if takes rook d7, and opening up the file. Yeah, well, resign might be a little quickly said, but of course, yeah, white is definitely completely winning, and white really hasn't messed this up. Well, c5, it was a very practical move with the idea after this to go into a relatively safe endgame. It might not be the best solution because that endgame might be hard to win. But anyway, Eric Rosen should have tried to do that. But Eric decided to keep queens on the board. But I just don't agree with that decision, because I don't necessarily think that white's king is weaker than black's. The knight on d2 is a very good defensive piece, whereas black's king is still under very much fire. So I don't really agree with the decision of trying to keep queens on the board for Eric. And now, well, actually this hasn't happened yet, but basically after g5, yeah, black is in quite a lot of trouble, and there's definitely a very good chance Rochelle wins this game.
Well, not all hope is lost for Eric, as you said. Most of it, though. Ragnarok56 in our chat says, let's go, Eric. So he has at least one fan. I know he has a whole bunch more. And remember, if you guys are just watching this on YouTube, be sure to jump on over to uschesschamps.com. We have 4 games left, and you can check them at your whimsy.
And there's some breaking news in the Gayura Shankar game. And amazingly enough, Black is actually now not worse in an endgame. So it looks like Gayuri actually really badly misplayed this.
Wow.
So in this position, this is where we left off. White was completely winning. And we were saying stuff like c5, b4, knight c4, just little by little improving the position. Black really has nothing productive he can do. But instead, Gayuri decided to force action. Bishop takes f6. Bad practical decision, trading off his excellent bishop on d4, which just controls everything, for the pinned knight on f6, which he can take almost at any moment, just to grab this pawn on e4. And suddenly Black has life, because his bishop now is a very active piece suddenly. c5, he played it now, queen e5. And in this position, White missed a great opportunity to finish off the game with a very nice tactic, knight c4, meeting queen takes e4 with knight d6 check, winning the game. And otherwise going knight d6 anyway, where White is just up 2 clear pawns without any counterplay whatsoever. But instead he took on g6 right away, and this was a huge mistake. It lets go of a lion's share of the advantage. And after this, he traded the queens and went into this ending. But this endgame was going to be very hard, if even possible, to win, because White will only be up a pawn. And also notice how all these pawns are in dark squares, and Black has a dark trip bishop, which is now very good. So this is going to be very, very hard to win. So White tried before, but objectively speaking, this is actually probably closer to a draw than to a win.
I often hear, when you are in the lead, don't trade off your pieces. Under any circumstances, don't let things be consolidated, because there goes your attack. And okay, here we have Joel Bonala and Andrew Hong has come to an end in Group A, and it looks like Bonala with the victory.
Well, I wanted to add that if you're up, let's say, a piece or a rook, then of course trading off simply is very easy. But if you're only up a pawn, that sometimes is not enough to just blindly go ahead and start trading off pieces. So pawn is not quite enough where you have to just say, okay, I'll trade everything off, and simple enough. All right, so let's check what happened in the Bonava game, and it looks like Andrew Hong indeed lost and Bonava indeed won. So let's see the finish of the game. Bishop b5, knight g3, queen f8. So knight g3 definitely wasn't helpful either. Queen f8, king d1, knight d7, a very nice backward move, attacking that last one weakness. And because of White's misplaced pieces, he couldn't even really defend it. And here, Bonava finished with a flourish tactic. Knight takes e5, queen takes e5, rook f1 check. Knight takes f1 is almost forced. And then just queen takes f1, queen e1, and bishop e2. And in the game, he played queen e1 right away, and still queen f3, and he resigned. So wonderful finish by Joel Bonala, very clutch, moves at the right time. At some point, he had a tough defense. Notice earlier, he had a moment where he played, some queen f5, rook g3, and he had to go back, queen f7. He lost 2 tempes, and sometimes when you make a mistake like that, it's very unpleasant to play after that, knowing you've just, kind of misplayed the position. But Joel fought like a lion this game once he got a tough position and took over the game later on. So.
And now we know that Joel is in first place right now, and he's going to be in clear first at the end of this round. And we do have an evening round later on tonight that starts at 5 p.m. Central Time. But great start here for Joel Bonala. Hopefully we can get him in the studio. One of the most well-spoken guys I know in the game. Okay, with one game left going in A, the Corley game, shall we glance back at Group B, Alex?
Sure. And let's check again on Rochelle Wu's game against Eric Rosen and see if there are any interesting developments that happened. So last time we looked, G5 was played. Black, took on the challenge, took the pawn. I mean, what else can Eric do? Rook d7, bishop f7, only move to stop the mate. Queen f6, good move. Rook f8, only move again. Queen takes g5. King h8. I mean, maybe bishop g6 was a little bit more resilient, but it's still probably losing. King h8, queen e5. and now knight e4. The knight, for a long time was a very good defensive piece, but as you could see, very quickly knights are jumpy pieces, right? And very quickly it can actually be a very good attacking piece. And notice how with the bishop coming here, there's no more need to control the b1 square. And if black goes queen g2, just rook d2. So black tried queen g2 indeed, rook d2, and queen g7. So at this point, black has no choice but to trade queens, otherwise he gets mated. But of course here, white is totally winning in the position. I do want to mention that king c3 might have been even more accurate, because then after queen g7, takes, knight d6, this is just game over, trading into winning king and pawn endgame. And if you try to do queen takes h3 or some sorts, then rook d3, and there's not even queen g7. But okay, the way Rochelle played is also should be completely winning. With takes and rook d7 or even knight f6. And we'll see what way Rochelle will try to win this.
Okay, and how about our key matchup in B, Gauri Shankar and Shikurate?
Gauri Shankar, yes. So this endgame kind of went as expected. Basically a few pawns got traded on the queen side. So white tried to play b3 in order to go knight d6, but black decided to go here, knight a5. Here, maybe there was one last chance to try b5 and knight d6. Maybe that was a slightly better chance, but most likely it still leads to a draw after king g7. And then if knight takes b7, then king f6. King comes close enough. But he tried knight d5, takes, king g6, knight d8, takes. And unfortunately, this will be probably hard to win. Probably impossible, because the bishop will park here on b6. And how is white ever going to make progress?
Pardon me, Alex. I do have word that we do have Joel Bonala ready for an interview, so I will be back in just a bit.
Sounds good. So let's see once again the Joel Bonala game, and let's go over some critical moments in this game. So let's go right to the critical moment when in this position. Let's go all the way to the start. So it was bishop g5, bishop b4. This was the opening. And so it's king f takes, knight d7, knight f3, queen c7. And h4, bishop d7, rook h3, rook c8, knight d4, bishop e8. And let's start right here. So welcome, Joel. Congratulations on a very nice fighting win.
Thank you, Alex.
How do you feel about this game?
It's unbelievable. I'm still, I don't know, I'm still stressing. It was a really stressful game. There was a lot of tactics.
It was stressful even to watch it to some extent.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
So what do you, first of all, what do you think were the main critical moments in this game? What do you think was the first critical moment for you or your opponent in this game?
I think when it was when I had to play bishop e8.
After knight d4?
After knight d4. Originally, of course, black's main idea is to play knight a4, but there's a lot of tricks. You could just play rook f3.
So knight a4, rook f3, right? And it looks like now if you go bishop e8, there's knight takes e6.
Yeah.
Right, so that's why Joel played bishop e8, a little bit of a prophylactic. Right. Also, maybe king g8 first was
King g8 was also possible, yeah. I was also thinking about playing a6 first, and then I think it's going to transpose back to the game if he plays rook e1 and then f5.
Yeah, the lines are very similar, yeah. So bishop e8 is probably a fine move, rook g3, and now f5, also a pretty good move, based on the idea that queen takes f4, of course, and trying to just shut down the attack. So white played rook e1, king g8, rook e3, and in this position you played queen f7,
yes.
Which is probably pretty good. Did you consider, by the way, the move bishop h5 here first?
Not really. I was worried that he might have some sort of like sacrifice on f5. Maybe he doesn't, but it just looks scary. I feel like I need my bishop on e8 just in case.
That makes sense, yeah. So queen f7, king e1, bishop d7, rook h3, rook f8. This is all like very good defense. h5, a6, bishop e2, b5, Maybe white could have played c4,
C4,
but
yes.
yeah, bishop e2, b5, knight f3, bishop e8. So this was all probably best play. Queen f7 or close to best play. But at this
I messed
moment,
up. If I was trying to rattle him on the clock, so I completely forgot knight d4.
so you probably missed the, well, if it goes knight d4 right away, I think, oh yeah, you just still have to go back.
Yes.
So let me ask you a question then.
Yeah.
So whenever we play a move that, you know right away it's kind of a mistake and,
Right.
losing just
Right.
two tempies.
Right.
How were you able to, what were your thoughts at that moment, and how were you able to recover and play a great game after that? Because I know it could be hard, obviously.
I was just thinking positively. I was thinking, you know what? Okay, I messed up, but my position is still solid. If somehow I can defend, and he has a lot of weak pawns, I could just defend this as much as I can.
Very good approach, so audience, definitely take note, and I'll definitely take note for myself. That's why in chess we have to always look at it positively.
Right.
Yeah, we can't ever have negative thoughts. Whatever happened, happened. We have to just accept it and just play on the rest of the game as if nothing happened. So of course in this position white is doing well, but maybe bishop d3 was deserving attention, trying to trade off that good knight here.
Yes.
But he played bishop g4, queen e7, rook f3, and here he probably should have exchanged the rooks, because I
Right.
teach everybody that when one has some bad pieces, it's good to try to trade off the neutral ones.
Right.
But he for some reason didn't do that, and now you found a good plan, just activating the rook.
Right.
That didn't do anything on h7, and now it's you who is in control.
Right.
But there was one more important moment where
Yeah, he had rook takes g7.
rook takes rook takes g7.
Yeah, I saw it after.
After,
was-
yeah.
yeah.
So how did you feel when he didn't do that?
I was relieved. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, in huge time
Yeah.
pressure, anything can happen. So he
Right.
played f3, and that was huge relief, of course.
Yes.
Queen h4. And from this point on, you played an excellent game. Queen e7, b4 you're in control from here on. And of course, knight e2 also doesn't help, because weakening the f3
Right.
square and everything.
I was thinking actually after b4, maybe rook g6 was his idea. That's
Yeah,
why he
rook-
played bishop d3. I was kind of worried about this.
I guess you can play queen f8 here, though.
Right, queen f8. Yeah, maybe it's a better try.
But still, of
Yeah.
course, you're still doing well, but of course, he should have tried something like that.
Right.
But he played knight e2, and after that, it was,
Yeah.
you were completely in control. And from this point on, he also didn't defend maybe in the perfect way, and bishop e5 was very nice. Finally, that bishop, which was kind of a defensive piece all game, and, plays
Right.
a big part in the attack, and, you finished in a very nice flourish. Knight d7 was very nice, of course,
Thank you.
It looks like a knight should stay somewhere here, attacking, but, of course, as I teach my students, you want to attack the key weakness
Right.
in the position, and the final tactic was also great. So congratulations on a great win. So how do you feel going into the next game?
I'm not trying to get too confident. I'm just taking it one game at a time. And, what happens, happens.
Sounds good.
That's
That's a
my
great
approach.
approach. So
Right.
I wish you best of luck going
Thank you.
forward, and wish you some more beautiful games like this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you, Alex.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go back to see what happened in the Corley against Tatiev game. We haven't looked at that game for a while, so let's see what has happened. Last time we left off in some endgame where it was basically white was pressing, and now white was able to exchange a pair of pawns here. And it looks like black should have tried rook f7 here. But he took, and that seems like a very big blunder, because actually after king d6, white could have won the game on a spot here with rook takes e5. Now I'm wondering if maybe Casa saw this, but maybe he thought that this pawn is still going to be unstoppable. But it turns out that after f4, if let's say king c5, because of b3, for example, knight b5, knight a3 will easily stop the pawn. Maybe he thought king c5, but it turns out white actually wins the race. b3, f6, b2, f7, and white queens would check, and white will win the game. And if king d6, then white will just go knight b5 and stop this pawn. So it turns out that white could have won like this, but maybe white thought it's not so clear and he played f4, but this actually, lets go of the big part of the advantage, and the white is still, of course, pressing, but now certainly black has, very good drawing chances. And there were a couple of more moves played, but I think this endgame is actually probably closer to a draw than it is for a win. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of leaning toward. I was glancing over at the Wu-Rosen game again. It looks like the pawns are encroaching on Rosen's territory. Maybe not ready to promote yet, but trying to get there.
Yeah, so it looks like at least somewhat Rosen's chances have improved a little bit. So let's see what happened. After queen g7, white took on g7 and played rook f2. It looks like rook d7 was maybe a bit more precise. But white played rook f2, and suddenly, it seems like Rosen is having a little bit of chances again. So even though white wins this pawn, but it still feels like, in the endgames, rook endgames, there's a famous saying, all rook endgames are drawn. So at least that's the one thing that can try to save Rosen here, that sometimes rook endgames have more drawing tendencies than any other endgames. Especially I see a lot of A, C, A pawns. And I remember from my game against the Wonder Liang in the first round in the US Championship, I ended up giving up a draw with extra 2 pawns because I had the wrong pawns. So this is kind of the thing that Rosen can be hoping for here. And here it looks like rook d7 was probably much cleaner, and after this c7 and just win the game. Rook a8, let's say, and something like rook d6. But Rochelle played in a more pragmatic way. Knight b7, and now bishop takes, rook check, king e5, rook takes, rook b6, and I think white should still be probably winning, but of course black will try to fight till the very end for a draw. But I think it's safe to say that black will not win this game at this point. It's only white who could play for a win, but should be winning. But of course, you never know for sure until the end, because black will try to activate the king. And although I think that if white just pushes the pawn to a5 and keeps the rook on b6, it should be winning, but we'll see if white will convert this.
It looks like Gori and Kenta's game is coming down to its final moments. They're about to draw.
Yeah. So let's see if any last chances were missed, but it looks like h4 was the right plan, just trading off pawns, because normally when we're down a pawn in an endgame like that, the more pawns we trade off, the easier it becomes, because once all the pawns gets exchanged, then black can even give up the bishop for this pawn, and that will be a draw, of course. So if b6, then he would just take and go g3 with the draw. So white tried to play like this, but of course this will be a draw, pretty sure. White's only chance is to try to somehow lure the bishop out of the diagonal, but there's really no way to do that. So this is going to be a draw.
Okay, and interesting game over here with Corley and Abrahamian in Group A, our final Group A game that's still going on. I mean, does that B pawn have any chances?
It has very good chances. I mean, that's the main source of black's counterplay, because if there was no B pawn, obviously white would be winning up 2 pawns. So that's the main source of black's counterplay, and whether that will be enough, it will depend on how they play, of course. But I think black has very serious counterplay chances. And also, keep in mind, all his pieces are very active. So, and in an endgame, piece activity is extremely important. So let's see if there are any moves have played. It looks like they're repeating moves. I would not be surprised if actually white goes for a draw, because it seems like, the counterplay is indeed real and serious. And they can actually very easily agree to a draw in this position. Because if white's going to continue playing for a win, it will be kind of risky for him. Because, for example, if you go b3, knight d2 at some point, rook c2, b2, the pawn will come quickly. And white's pawns are still kind of far away. So while maybe if you play very carefully, white could still be a little bit better, but you have to play very, very accurately to keep even slightest winning chances here.
All right, very well.
So let's see what other games we have.
Only 3 left in total.
So let's see if this game was already... So let's see what happened in the Rochelle game. Yeah, well, actually, the Rochelle game, this is the kind of thing that I was thinking about, I was worried about for Rochelle, where you're up 2 pawns, but this could still be a long technical road ahead. Now, I think this kind of endgame might still be winning, but I know that when there are 2 A and H pawn, these endgames have actually serious drawing chances. So, like, for example, I think here, maybe white should try to secure the pawn first. But, in the game, king b3 was played and rook b7. But this endgame, whether it's winning, I'm not a huge expert on these rook endgames. But actually, now black has counterplay with a lot of side checks. So actually, I'm seriously worried about white's winning chances here. It might still be winning, but even if it is, it's becoming much more difficult. And black is beginning to get real drawing chances.
But how exactly do you draw this? What does the final position take shape? I mean,
it would be something like called the Vancouver position. It's something that Dvoretsky covers in his manuals. I think here Eric should go king b6 and try to not let the king get active, and then try to do side checks. And usually the rook is good on the 6th rank at some point. Like even when white, let's say, pushes the pawns, let's say to h6, it's very often good to have the rook on a 6th rank, where it keeps control over this pawn, but also, somewhere in the F or the G files where you can always give side checks and not let the white king make any progress. So, I mean, these kind of endgames, there are lots of theoretical positions, there's lots of theory on them. They're very hard to play. But at the same time, I'm just saying that, whether it's actually theoretically a winning or a drawing position, from a practical standpoint of view, anything can happen here. And, we would probably need to check the table basis here to see if the game is winning or not.
Oh, yeah. Did they just shake, or did I just see something? No.
No, I don't
They're
think
still playing.
I don't think Rochelle would agree to a draw here, obviously, but and this game is gonna obviously be a draw. Now the king is in front of the pawn, so there's nothing left to play for. And Casa Corley game, let's see what happened. Okay, so Casa did try to play for a win. Well, actually, wait a second. King d5, rook here. Okay, so Casa did decide to play for a win with knight g4. So he decided to keep the game going, but now black should probably try b3 and let white prove his play after b3. So while he's thinking, let's go back and check on Rochelle's game. So there are a couple of moves have been played. King b4, rook f1, check here, and then a4. So white is making progress, but of course his position is still could go either way, in my opinion. So there are a couple of more moves made. Eric played rook f4 check. Rochelle played king b5. And if rook f5, then king a6 would be the idea, I assume. Alright, so let's see. This is going to be a draw, so any moment. So let's go back and check this one. So b3, rook b8 has been played. And now black can even take the pawn on g3 if he wants to. And yeah, white can win the pawn on f6, let's say with here and there then, but still black with this b pawn will, get a, serious counterplay for a draw, and objectively this position is a draw, I think.
Okay, so with the 3 games left, we expect this game to be a draw. We expect Gori and Kenta in Group B to be a draw. And then we think that Rochelle might win.
Yeah, that game I would say is kind of around 50-50 because it's still kind of at a point where the difference of one move can make a huge difference. But I'm not 100% sure about the exact evaluation. That's what I'm saying. That would be good to check on the Lima table base.
We might be able to see the end of all of these games before we go off the air today, which is a rarity with these short-form broadcasts if we're not in like the final days. We want to tell you, though, that it's not just one round a day. For today and then Saturday, tomorrow, and Sunday, there are 2 rounds a day in the Norm Congress, and you can check it out at uschesschamps.com. The rounds each day begin at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. Central Time. And then on Monday and Tuesday, our final 2 rounds will have their own days all to themselves, both starting at 11 a.m. So we won't have commentary tonight, but round 3 will be tonight, 5 p.m., uschesschamps.com. Check it out with our friends at Chess24. Okay, I hear that Tatev's game in Group A is over. Let's take a look at what happened against Corley.
Black won this game.
Black won? Tatev with the victory.
And I told you back then, that I wouldn't be surprised with any result here, because here White made a humongous blunder. Castle took on h7 instead of going, let's say, King g5, and allowed a simple checkmate in 2. So very dramatic ending to this game. And I told you, when there's time pressure in such a game, when, you think that you're winning, you're pressing, it's very easy to kind of, lose the idea that you can lose, and kind of very easy to underestimate the danger in such a position. I've seen that happen so many times. So I feel very, very bad for Casa, especially given that yesterday he had a good position against JJ and blundered in 1 move, and now today this happened. So I really feel bad for Casa. He could have easily had 1.5 or 2 points by now, but now has to start with 0 out of 2. So I hope that he keeps playing his fighting enterprising chess and keeps staying positive. But of course, it's a very unpleasant blow for Casa, but very, very nice win for Tatev, and hopefully this is the kind of game that will get her tournament really going, and maybe this is the break she needs to have a great tournament and get to 2400.
Right. I mean, in these events, if it's not the U.S. Women's Championship, she seems to always be in one of the lower seeds, if not the lowest seed. So you got to feel good for Tatev here, one of St. Louis's longest known and favorite players against Corley, even though it was a 1-move slip-off. What a pretty slip-up it was.
Yeah, that was incredible. But that just goes to show that nerves play a big part, tiredness and everything, and anything can always happen in these games, and because humans are humans for a reason. So let's check back on this game. So here, of course, this is about to be a draw, because this is a basic king and pawn endgame draw. So I expect they just play a couple of more moves, they'll reach a stalemate, and then we'll see this game end in a draw. And the game Rochelle against Eric Rosen. Let's see how Rochelle was trying to win this. So she went rook h5, trying to control the side checks with rook f5. But now rook f1, a5, and a5 seems like a shaky move, because now this king doesn't have as much shelter. So I'm not really sure about a5. Maybe rook h7, h4 was good. Like, let's say we do this, and let's say we do this. Maybe at some point I think White should. Okay, so at some point White should try to probably sacrifice this pawn. Well, not like this because of mate, but sacrifice this pawn maybe, because if you go greedy and win this pawn, then you can try rook f8, rook f5, and then the king can come in over. So something like this. At some point, you need to sacrifice one of the pawns to be able to win the game. So Rochelle played here, king b5, king b7, rook h5, rook f1, a5, c1, rook h7, king b8, a6. Yeah, maybe king if king b6, rook b1, king a6, rook c1, rook h6. Maybe that was, but again, this is a very hard endgame to play. So a6 was played, and then that led to this, and rook a1. Yeah, so I'm still not sure whether white is winning or not, but I guess we'll see. And this game officially ended in a draw, so now we're only left with the game of Rochelle.
Very well. Whenever we have, since we have all of the games in our top division finished, whenever we have those standings ready for you, we will get to them. But yeah, with one game left, okay. Let's take a look at our results for our Grandmaster Norm section. All of the games are finished. Here's what happened today. Tata of Abrahamian, that big win for her. Last second slip up by Casa Corley in the end game allows for a beautiful checkmate. Congrats to her. Brandon Jacobson, the Jacobson brothers, man, what a great day for them. He was a part of that, his victory over Brian Escalante right before we went on the air. And our key matchup, Joel Bonala, with his victory over Andrew Hong, got to talk to us in the studio. Awesome day for him. Boros Dembuliak, Ali Marandi, and Wang, they drew their games. So we will have standings for you a little bit later on.
Yeah, and breaking news here. I'm
What
pretty
happened?
sure Rochelle was winning here with rook b7 check. And then if king a8, then you can play h4, once again, trying to sacrifice this pawn. Now, if black does not take the pawn and plays a move like this, then rook b4, and the king will just come over, while the black king will be cut off, and white will be winning. So black would probably take the pawn, but then after rook b6, actually it looks like it's still winning, because what can black do? You cannot trade the rooks, because that will be losing, because you cannot catch the pawn. If you go rook a4 here and rook here, then rook b5, same idea as before. You know, you go king over and then you just promote the pawn. And if you go rook a5, then rook b5, rook a6, and let's say something like king d7, check, king e6, and eventually again the king comes over, this king is cut off, and this is winning. If black would try after rook b7, king c8, then king b6 should be winning, because after this, if black ties down to the pawn, then rook h7, and then the pawn will just, so let's say black waits here, 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 and eventually in the position like this is a winning position, because here you're able to just go rook b8 and then just win the pawn, win the rook. So Rochelle was winning here for sure after rook b7. Instead she played a7, which I think is a huge blunder. It probably already blows the win. And then, well, at least she should try rook h8, king takes, and then h4, which still might be winning, but maybe it's not anymore, because after, let's say, rook a4, this is the position I was going to talk about a little bit today, called the Vancouver position. King goes somewhere, and then rook f6. No, not rook f6. Here, rook a5. And basically, after this, rook a6. And this is called the Vancouver position, which you can read about in a lot of endgame manuals, where if white ever goes here, then after this is just a dead draw. So white is forced to keep the pawn on h6. But if you go here, you can just go here.
Let's go in and look at the live board, actually. This is kind of a funny issue.
Yeah.
I think there's an invincible rook on the board.
Yeah, that's exactly, that's what I was going to say, yes. So after this, h4.
Okay, let's go back, yeah.
Yeah, well, h4 was, a very bad move, because after h4, clearly, it's going to be an invincible rook, because there's a stalemate idea, and now it's really just a draw right away. Whereas at least if she would have played rook h8, black would still have to know the Vancouver position and still would have to prove the draw. And this could still go either way. But after this, now it's definitely a completely dead draw. And feel bad for Rochelle. But I guess, that's part of the learning process. She's the youngest participant, the youngest player in the tournament. And, sometimes you have to have these painful things happen to really learn, unfortunately, in chess. It happened to me against the Wanderer, where I didn't win a winning rook endgame, and that kind of set up bad tournament for me later on. let's hope that this doesn't happen to Rochelle. Let's hope she will be able to recover off of this miss and continue playing great chess.
Let's take a look at the results after 2 rounds have been played in our IM Norm division. So we had Aaron Jacobson over Keaton Kira, Luis Torres defeating Aaron Grabinski before we took to air. Peter Giannatos beats Ezra Chambers, and then Shankar and Chiku Rante have drawn, and Rochelle Wu and Eric Rosen drew. Man, Rochelle came what looked to be pretty close to drawing blood there, but couldn't get the job done, and Rosen ended up with the mythical, immortal rook. Take me, please, says the rook. Take me, please. And it's inevitable. The game is drawn. That was kind of pretty. And so now, after 2 rounds, we know that Gauri Shankar and Aaron Jacobson are in the lead with 1.5 out of 2 in our IM division. And Joel Bonala stands tall, the only player in either field with 2 for 2 in the Grandmaster Norm section. What are your takes on the day before we sign off, Alex?
Yeah, it was again a very exciting round. Very fighting games, pretty much, for the most part. Yeah, it just goes to show chess is a fight. It's not about who is theoretically better. It's about who has the best nerves, who has the best physical fitness, who can play the right moves at the right time, and and who has very good fighting spirit. As Eric showed here, you have to always fight till the end. You have to look for chances in the end. As Joel showed us, you can make a mistake losing 2 tempes and make a very unpleasant blunder, but still come back very strong after that and keep a positive mindset. Right. So what matters is how good your mindset is throughout the tournament, throughout the game, and if you have the right mindset, you will reach your goals in the end. So that's ultimately what the most important thing is.
Very well said. Remember, everybody, tonight, 5 p.m. Central Time, we will have round 3 at uschesschamps.com. Check that out. The 2019 St. Louis Norm Congress will be on the air again with you tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central Time. I'll be out, but we have the one and only Caleb Denby co-hosting the show along with Grandmaster Aleksandr Lenderman. So, this show was produced by the world's greatest production B-Team. Danny Machuca was your technical director. Isaac Schrantz, graphics and audio. And Eric Mosel is the show designer. I want to thank Tammy Hyde for keeping the stream up and running today. And until tomorrow, he's Grandmaster Alex Lenderman. My name is Ben Simon. We say so long from the Show Me State.